Hey, how's it going? It's Mike Milnarik here. I have decided to start a video series that has to do with more teaching type stuff. Over the years, I have taught a lot of students. I mean, a lot of students. And to the point where actually I kind of got known as a teacher, especially in the Boston area. I was teaching at a number of colleges, and when I first started out, I taught an enormous amount of students, running from school to school in after-school lesson programs and that kind of stuff, which a lot of other people do too. Not to say I'm anything special, but I got to a certain point where I felt like there were a lot of things that I was missing out on with my own life, that I wasn't accomplishing some of my goals that meant a lot to me, and I was giving a lot to teaching, and sometimes not enough to myself. Then the pandemic, so a little bit before the pandemic, I started having this realization, and I was cutting down on the number of students I was teaching, and then the pandemic hit, and I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing, and everybody, a lot of people jumped on Zoom and started teaching, which I get, of course, and I think it's great. And education kept going, and it was something that was very important to everybody involved. And but I decided, I think, to step back a little bit more. And it's been an interesting thing since the pandemic ended, or I should say, got better. It became something to me that there was some concern of getting together privately with students because of COVID. So it was like, when was that the right time to do that? When was the time to move forward and just start teaching lessons again? So I kind of decided to focus more on myself again, and less on the private instruction aspect. Now, but that doesn't mean I wasn't teaching, or it didn't mean that I don't love to teach, because I absolutely love to teach. But I decided to cut back on it at one point, and then the pandemic kind of really put the kibosh on things, and then coming out of it was difficult for me anyway. So it ended up that I would say right now, there's a student that I wanted to mention, that because now I'm back into teaching, and I have this college student for the summer. I'm not going to mention his name, but I have a college student for the summer that has taken about 9 lessons with me over the course of the summer. He's taken, I think we've had 4 so far, and we got 5 more to go. And we were, it seems that every week we're making enormous progress. He's somebody that just wanted to keep going during the summer. He goes to college someplace else in a different state, and I am very, very happy that he found his way to me. There's a little bit of a roundabout route, but he got here. And I realized how important teaching is to me, because I see progress. Today's lesson ended with a high five, before the end of the lesson, because of something that he couldn't do, and then he nailed it. And it just gets me excited. He was super excited, and it kind of changes you. And I realized that how much I missed, teaching more than I have been. And so anyway, we were working on one of the things that we're working on today, and we're talking about, was a daily routine, and why we do a daily routine. And there's the obvious answers. And the one of the main reasons, and one of the most obvious answers, is to build consistency. We're trying to build consistency in our playing. We're trying to make sure that we are able to produce at a certain level every time that we pick up the instrument. So this is something we talked about, and what I decided today, I thought about it for a while, but I thought more about it today, is that I need to offer more of what I have, because I like sharing with other people. I care about other people a great deal. And it gets to the point where I found that even though my goals are important to me and the things that I felt like I was putting off for teaching are important to me, I feel that somehow I was too inward focused, maybe, and not sharing enough, which actually became partly to my detriment. Because when I teach students now and we make serious progress, it is profound to me. It is profound to me. It really makes a big difference. So I've decided as of today that I need to make more educational videos. I have short ones up on basic concepts on my website from a while back. They're pretty short, to the point. And my last name, as most of you know, because you'll see this on social media, is Milnarik, Milnarik, and my website just added .com to that. And there's educational videos there that are on YouTube. And my YouTube channel is Beantown Tuba. So anyway, I decided today that I'm going to start making more educational videos, and I'm going to start with this video. So we started talking, like I said, about daily routine, and one of the things that we also talked about was, I think that when we talk about, and you're going to think this is going to get boring real quick when we're just talking about daily routine and doing exercises and focusing on individual aspects of playing and building consistency, you go, okay, well, I got that. How far can I go with this? And this is going to be boring. Well, today's lesson was actually way past that. And what I mean by that is that I talked to him about building that consistency so that the better player you are and the more consistent player you are, the more opportunities you have. When you're in a major city and there are more musical opportunities, there are also more musicians. So that means there's more competition. And competition is something that can really help us keep our level at a very high place. And the good thing is that once you do that for a long time, it continues, so that when you're not in a city and you're someplace else, you still have a high standard, and you still work very hard to keep the level that you've worked so hard over the years to try to do. So one of the points that I was trying to demonstrate was that we were doing breathing exercises, and he, again, I'm not mentioning his name, he flaps his arm while he plays, and something we all did at one point, and then we have to get out of it. And so he's just doing breathing exercises and he's flapping his arm. He's got a metronome on and he's flapping his arm. So I got done doing one and I said, so you're flapping your arm? And he was like, I can't believe I'm doing this while I'm just breathing. And I said, right, it's a habit. So now think about this. When we're developing habits and we're trying to develop that habit so that it's a good habit, a habit sticks with us. It stays with us. So to change that habit is difficult. So I don't give him a hard time about it. I'm just reminding him, and we laugh about it and say, like, hey, you're flapping your arm again. You know, that kind of thing. So he's getting better. He's remembering this. And he doesn't do it as often, which is great. But I said, now think about this. If you do a daily routine and you play the exercises in the routine correctly, and you do this on a daily basis, so that you develop a good habit playing that exercise, you have a habit. You know how hard it is right now for you to get rid of the flap in your arm? Well, guess what? When you have a good habit, it's going to be hard to get rid of that good habit, especially when you're not trying, you don't want to. So if we can develop good habits along the way, that makes a huge difference in everything, because those good habits are going to stick. How do we do this? Over and over and over again. but we have to make sure the concept is correct, that we have to make sure that we're doing exactly things exactly the right way. You know, there's that old adage of practice makes perfect, but it really doesn't. Practice makes perfect works really well if you're doing things correctly. If you're doing something incorrectly, you are creating a bad habit and you're reinforcing it on a regular basis. So perfect practice makes perfect. But then the most difficult thing that most people don't think about when we're thinking about that, and we have the pursuit of perfection, is that we are trying to play perfectly, and we cannot play perfectly all the time. We can't. Best players in the world make mistakes. We can build consistency so that we don't make as many mistakes and that we are playing close to perfect. And the pursuit of perfection is very important. But to be able to actually be perfect is ridiculous. We're not going to be perfect. We are striving to be as good as we possibly can, and not just that we possibly can do, but we're also trying to surpass that. Private lessons, a teacher telling you that, nope, you can do better than that. You can reach a higher level. Don't settle for this. You're settling for something lower than what you're capable of. Something as simple as that. And so that, I think, is a lesson in itself. And so what I also was explaining was that, you know, that when it comes to freelancing, you know, and every freelancer that, if any freelancers are watching this, you'll all tell me that it's, yes, I understand that. It's the same where I am, wherever it is, wherever in the country you are, is that you're auditioning every time you play in public. And it's stressful. Is it stressful? Yes, it's very stressful sometimes. And it depends on the music. If the music is very difficult, then it becomes even more stressful. But our preparation for that, if we prepare well and then we can play the music well, and it seems easier to us by the time the performance happens, then it's a much easier situation and it's not quite as stressful because now we feel like we're going to nail it. So taking ourselves to that next level and really working hard on it is very important, because in a freelance world, and this is what I was saying that most freelancers will agree with me, is that if you don't come in and play well, it's like an audition. And if it's that bad, somebody else will be sitting there next time. Now, am I just being harsh? No. I'm just giving you reality. That's the way it is. Have I had bad performances? Yeah. Unfortunately, some of them stick, you know, they really stick. They stick in your head, you know, and you're not proud of them. But have I had good performances? Oh, yeah. I've had a lot more good performances than bad performances. But I've had some times, you know, we all have some doozies that just, for whatever reason, you know. I remember, just a side story, I remember my mom finding out she had breast cancer. And the day she found out I had a gig, and my mind was out in space, and I had a really bad performance. Fortunately, people still hired me. You know, I was going through a bad day. But that happens. So much of what we do has to depend on habits. And then when we have bad days and when things aren't going as well, sometimes those habits just kick in and they help us through. If we're not prepared, it's exponentially worse. It's exponentially worse. So when we're practicing and you say that here is your bad day and here is a really good day, what we're eventually trying to get to is that your bad days are getting better. And of course, well, the screen's going to disappear here. So I can just keep this as your good day. But hopefully your good days get better. They keep getting higher and higher. But then your bad days start reaching sort of near your good days, so that you develop these habits, and then these good days end up being close to your bad days. So for instance, you'll get done with something and say like, oh, that was so bad. I'm having such a bad day. It just didn't go as well as I wanted it to. And then anybody else around you that heard you was like, what are you talking about? You sound great. That's what you're striving for. You're striving for that high level that stays high even when it's not your best. And then you have to be patient with yourself and realize that we all have bad days. And you have to not beat yourself up. You can, what I tell my students is you can assess and solve the problem. Assess it, figure out like, well, what went wrong? And then figure out solutions to it. But nothing in the middle of that says beat yourself up about it. I think it's really important to keep in mind because so many of us, including myself, much easier said than done. Easy to give advice to someone else, but to give yourself that same advice is difficult. But we all have had times where we beat ourselves up when we're playing and it doesn't go so well, and then we are very down on ourselves for it. And we have to remember that it happens. And we have to remember that, or have to think about, were there things that I could have controlled to make that performance better? Was it just a bad day, like that thing with my mom I talked about? Or was it, I didn't practice enough for that? I didn't know this music well enough. Or I practiced it until I knew it, but I didn't spend a lot of time reinforcing it. It's really important. So one of the other things we talked about is that when you are taking lessons and you are trying to get better and you are practicing, you're doing this for one person and one person only. You. You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for your family. You're not doing it for anybody else. Now, I'm talking about a slightly higher level. I'm not talking when you start out and then mom and dad are telling you to take lessons. And yeah, you're doing it for your family and stuff at that point. But once you enjoy it and you're taking lessons on your own, that's the important thing here. You're doing it for you. The better you get and the more consistent you are, the more opportunities that opens for you. That means that people will want to play with you. People will ask you to play their gigs, orchestra, band, jazz, solo, various concerts of anything, brass quintet, chamber music, depending on what instrument you play, of course. But you also have to be able to get along with people, and that's really important as well. So your outward impression that you give other people is very important. And that outward impression is something that it's difficult because there has to be a certain amount of confidence that you show in your playing and in your demeanor so that people feel comfortable around you, that they feel they can count on you. But it has to be to a point where you're still very easy to get along with. And especially if you're playing on someone else's gig that they've hired you, you also have to be very flexible in what they want you to do. They're paying you. So, I always say to people that, when I'm playing somebody else's gig, I'm a yes man. When I'm playing my own gig, I have to, as a leader, have an opinion and decide what's going to happen and be firm and clear about that, so people know what I want. And I learned that over the years of trying to be a leader of a group and various groups and sometimes failing and not doing as well. But I try to learn from it, and then as I learned, it got better, and I realized that I have a certain expectation that I need to be sure to follow through on. That if I am in charge, people want to know what I want. First, it was kind of like, well, what do we want? So I'm going pretty far with this, but it's like, so this whole thing just goes in a position where that we are trying to build consistency so that we have more opportunities. The more consistent we are, the more that we know fundamentals, the more opportunities that we have, that we can play various styles of music, all different kinds of stuff. And we also get to a certain point that if we're not, what I tell my students, if you're not getting the work that you want to have, if you are not getting called up for a brass quintet and you really want to play in a brass quintet, if you're not getting called for a New Orleans brass band and you really want to play in a New Orleans brass band, then put one together yourself. That consistency goes for your playing and it goes for your person. You have to show consistency. And so all of this culminates back into, why do I do a daily routine? The answer is not just to get better. It's part of it. It's part of it. To build consistency, it's part of it. To open opportunities, it's part of it. To eventually be good enough and have good habits going, that I play well enough, that I have opportunities, that's part of it. So I can make a living, that's part of it. So that I can be successful, so I can be a leader, so I can be confident in playing the music in a daily routine, the basics, the fundamentals. Adds it factors into everything we do musically and personally and professionally, mostly professionally. So it all depends on your goals. But even for a part-time player that doesn't play a lot, the better you play, you could have any career you want, but the better you play, the more opportunities it opens for you, the more different things you can do. And by and large, it's like the bottom line is that you can have fun and enjoyment out of it. It brings you joy. It brings you happiness. That is really what it comes down to. And I've discovered some things about myself lately that I'll probably do another video on, or maybe I'll just put up a text post or something. But I've discovered some stuff that is changing me, and it's I hope making me better as a person, and I think it factors into everything, and that is part of why I've decided to do more videos, or do videos. I mean, I have some, like I said in the past, some short ones and stuff on particular topics. I think they're a little drier than this, but I think that some of the changes that are happening in me right now, I think, are actually a catalyst for me to do more and to give more and to share more. So anyway, I hope this helps a little bit. Probably boring as hell, but but you know, I'm just trying my best right now. So all right, hope it helps. See you later.